Well, first of all, thank you, Professor Keenan. He's been my professor, and it's very unfair because I didn't do anything. It was all the other. So, but I accept gratefully in the name of the Pontifical Council of Culture, but really I wasn't involved because I just arrived. So I have the task to sort of try to close this. It's complicated because it was all extremely interesting. And let me try to pick up in a model. In other words, you're going to have everything online, so you don't need to go through everything. What I'd rather do is do something like this. You all remember, some people mentioned the Webb's depth of knowledge test or system. I know some of you don't agree with it, but the point is, if you really think about it, knowledge can be somewhere divided between facts, then you go up to concepts and complex reasoning, and then it does end up with extended thinking. So the point is to give you some extended thinking material, because we did get a lot of facts, we did get a lot of concept, and complex reasoning. So I'm just worrying about the extended thinking you can have. So what I did is I sort of followed Søren Kierkegaard's principle. And we all know it. And that a dilemma is to the mind what passion is to the heart. So you don't give solutions, you could give questions, and especially dilemmas if possible. Okay? So I went through all the discussions. And of course, this is a two-legged thing, because then Augusto is going to pick up. So Msgr ZAMPINI is going to pick up. So this is and I'm not going to go through everything. But I'm just going to give you an example how to read this if you're interested online for future thought. Of course, some of the themes came back and forth. So I couldn't possibly put them all together. For instance, we had begun with common good, and some people are talking about value-based, heuristic, virtue-oriented. And then the contrast was with technology. Technology makes things very precise, Reid Hoffman said, right? And therefore, it's very complicated because you have to point it down to something. It's just, and eventually people gave ideas on this and tensions, definitions of laudato si, starting from what we all consider evil, preferential option for the poor. So this is how you could read this, the same thing goes for the third one, for instance, right? The fact that there's a lot of tension. We're talking about enormous fragmented reality of the digital age, right? You have global effects, close-knit communities. You have general challenges. You have specific solutions sometimes. You have platforms that are universal that can be changed. So I'm not going to bother you with the rest. You can do the same thing with the ethics case. You can do the same thing with war, peace, and technology if you need. You can do the same thing with future of work. I'm just going to save you time and effort. And I wanted to, of course, the ethical dilemma, I didn't do the second part. I just did what I did this morning. But I want to close with something that maybe can help us. And going back to the real first one. When we studied moral theology, and Father Jim started like this, he says, well, moral life is doing good and avoiding evil. Well, here we go. The question really is that the digital age is about our artificial intelligence evaluate the common good. And this idea I got from a great Angel. Now, he's an engineer, and he's used to break down problems. And this is why it works. And I also stole it from Bishop Tai, who says, maybe we shouldn't stop really talking about artificial intelligence and talk about artificial intelligences. And here it comes. Think of this. We have three very simple and reductive models of artificial intelligence. When you just load up the machine, when the machine learns by itself, when the machine will do everything by itself and look like us. And now insert the common good into this. Okay, I'm going to give you an example afterwards, right? The point is that in the first one, you program the machine with an algorithm to tell you to consider values of the common good. But when you go to machine learning, she has to copy you. There was a great article in the New York Times about startups in India, that are asking people, professionals, to teach them, to data label them, their experience so they can put it inside AIs, right? And the point is, machine learning can say, well, I data label what human beings are doing, and then therefore I can learn, what common good is. But think of the third step, and we're already there, where it's the machine defining itself what the common good is. And if you think that's far away, it's not. I'm going to give you a great example for those who come to California. I've never been to California. I hope somebody invites me. Think of Chatterbaby. And some of you are parents, and you can download it. I have Huawei, so I should be ashamed. But, you can download Chatterbaby from anywhere. What happens is that at UCLA, some guys realized that they were deaf parents. And deaf parents could not hear their children, right? So they went to the guys at UCLA and says, how do I know if my child is crying or how do I do that? So the guys at UCLA got a great idea, They say, it's very simple. We get 1,000 babies, and we just make sure we get algorithms for all the types of cries they make, right? When they're hungry, when they need to be changed, and when they're sick, and so on and so forth. And then we ask the computer to algorithmize them, And then when your child is going to be in trouble, you just put the thing in the child, and he tells you, baby needs food. Of course, because it's simply calculating the probability of the algorithm. That's the green one. He doesn't know where the common good is. He's just crunching numbers. But think of the blue one. Now you tell the machine, do it better, right? And the machine will do it better. It will get more data, and then it's going to tell you exactly if it's fever and if it's not. And you can see this going very far. But the real step is the red one, right? Because you tell the machine, find yourself what is good about this. And what is it going to do? Well, think of this. In the blue one, it can already help you. It can say, for instance, the baby needs food, have some domotic problem, and therefore, I'm going to order for you in your grocery store, some baby food for next week. It's doing its job. But think of the red one now. The baby cries because it's continuously hurt. Then it looks at the criminal record of the parents. It looks at how much beer you've ordered. Finds out that you have taken marijuana when you were wrong and you were arrested. Finds out that when you were at the last baseball game, you were involved in a row. And then he decides. He calls the police. Common good. Social services show up at your door and say, what's happening here? So I just gave this example. Chatterbaby is not doing that, of course. But technically, it's very easy to do already. So the point I'm making is this. Who's going to decide the common good? By the time we decide it here, machines can do it much, much faster. And they have lots of room to do it. They have big data. They can find out if, all sorts of things about you. They just have to compare the data. And they can do it in crazy ways. I read somewhere, I don't know if this is true or not, that one of the elements you can predict how people vote is the kind of Not of the car, just of the type of brand. Some people buy GM or buy Ford, and the machine doesn't make a difference. If that's an element, it's an element. So the person will do this. So all I'm saying, and I'm going to leave it to Augusto. Thank you to all, and in more detail with Augusto.
So thank you, Carlo Maria. It's not often working in the Vatican you get proud of one colleague, no? So thank you. That was brilliant. So I will talk about 3 points, maybe to close. Difficult to close because my mind is on fire at the moment. I have thousands of things to answer to Carlo Maria, but I would just try to synthesize something of what you said and provide some feedback. And one is, of course, we are all, many of us here, we are disciples of Jim Keenan, so we are going to talk about building bridges. And then the question about in many sessions appear, technology could be used for good, or technology, it's a bit complicated, or could be good for evil, and even now Carmina put an excellent example that it could be even more complicated. So I'm going to address something about that in relation to our capacity to be creative as human beings. And the last question, because if you notice there are 3 questions, so we will want to end up with questions. We don't want to say, we have the solutions, this is the chair telling. So Monsignor Dufay and Monsignor Tai, they opened and fantastic. alongside with Michelle Baker and Reid Hoffman, so two key players of Silicon Valley, two key players of the Vatican. They set the tune for food for thought. They were not telling us from the technology side what to do, or from the church side what to do. They open for thought, and we want to close with questions. These 3 questions, and of course the last one is it really for all what we are doing? Because for us this is the main question. So, common good and digital in the digital era and building bridges. This is the new thing, the bridge that is in Venezia, no? And if you can see, there are different types of bridges or different types of hands. And I think, again, following up with Carlo Maria, there's no, like he said, there's no one artificial intelligence, but we need to start thinking of artificial intelligences. Well, we also need to start thinking in different bridges. There's no one bridge. One obvious bridge is, for example, what happened today with our friends here, that they met here and they have an excellent idea to link technology with the promotion of Sustainable Development Goals, and with Christmas and with young generation, we did nothing. I mean, they were you creating bridges for a concrete project. Now in December, it's not just, well, we will see. Now we will create a committee to decide what we are going to do. No. They are doing it. They're already making building a nice bridge. Another thing, another obvious one, and I invite you to create more bridges as well. Another one is the bridge between ethicists or people coming from the humanist side, from the church, and people coming from the technical side. As you can see, it's not an easy bridge to build. It's not easy. It's not straightforward. I know nothing about technology, and I have to sit with these very clever people of making blockchain or artificial intelligence or more hackers, and I know nothing about that. It's completely out of my comfort zone. But equally, the others. So, but because it's outside the comfort zone, one of the things, the key for me to bring these different dimensions, as Sheila was pointing out, is what Monsignor Dufay said, to recover our capacity to listen. So when he said it, many people said, "Well, what is he talking about? We're talking about technology, the capacity. If we lose the capacity to listen, we cannot build bridges. If we don't build bridges, the digital age won't be for the common good." So you can see it's a concrete way of talking about, we have to talk about what does it mean to be human. Well, as Sheila pointed out, it's not an easy question. It's very messy, that question, because we have different people with different views on that. But everybody can agree that we have a capacity to listen. And if we lose that capacity, machines will listen, but in another way. We have a different, for now, I don't know what will be the development on that, but that capacity to listen allows us to go outside our comfort zone and build bridges with other people and other dimensions. Then another hand would say, in the light of the session on peace building, and so I was struck with the phrase of Misiroli, who said, how do we, he posed a question, how do we defend ourselves? And my first reaction, I don't know yours, but was, we're talking about defense, I want to talk about peace building. But we want to defend ourselves. If somebody's attacking you, you want to defend yourself. If somebody's attacking Carlo Maria now, I will try to defend him. So how do we, and if you translate that into nations, how do we plan a national defense, but aiming at a global strategic stability, as Ms. Arbatova was saying, not just building walls to defend ourselves or firewalls, but how do we plan a comprehensive defense system that takes into account the strategic stability? How do we manage what we have, whether weapons or technology, which is the question of governance and public policies, what Professor Gallucci was pointing out. How do we do that? How do we help politicians to develop this idea, because we cannot be naive and think we won't have any more defense programs. We won't have but how can we help with the new technologies and the common good side to promote a different understanding of security? And again, maybe it's a common phrase, but from building walls to building bridges, this includes peace building, as Jody Williams was saying, and we cannot think on a world for the common good without thinking in the promotion of peace, because we have the capacity to be creative, but we have the capacity to be destructive. And if we don't develop our capacity to be creatively peaceful, we are going to develop a destructive technology. So that was something I learned from the panel of peace as well. How can technology help us to be closer, acknowledging that we have different standing points? As Sheila was saying, and I think this is something that the economist and philosopher Amartya Sen takes, when he talks about the theory of the idea of justice. He says, well, where do we start to promote justice, or peace, by the way? Because if we have different views, we're different standpoints. And he said, well, let's start to reduce injustices. And some of you were pointing out that in the first sessions. Maybe we can start on thinking reducing conflicts is very important. The conflicted areas or regions of the world are the least developed. People are suffering the most there, and aid cannot even reach there. So this is something that we need to talk. I learned a lot about this building. But also the last hand of bridges I want to point out is that, and Julio Martinez mentioned, the transdisciplinary approach. Building bridges not just between the technical side and the ethical side, or, well, I will include what Robert Gallucci said, the political side or civil society side. But how do we include the economic side? As Sheila was pointing out, whether you like it or not, economics rules the world. So here was, we invited Mariana Mazzucato. I don't know if you know her. She's an economist at the UCL. She has an outstanding idea, and she put it in a book called The Value of Everything. And she couldn't come because she was in she's now at the UN General Assembly. But she is willing to continue the conversation. She's willing to be part of bringing trying to remind ourselves that how can we also help? How can we use technology to forge an economy that can serve and not rule? That is the phrase of Pope Francis. But for that, we have to talk about the theory of value. What do we value? Even not just from an ethical side, but from an economic perspective. What is the value? What are we? Because this is inextricably related with what Pierre Martineau Lagarde was saying about the future of work and the need for business people to come. What are the value? We cannot continue to say that nature is, or the damage to nature or the pollution is a collateral effect, or we cannot continue with this thought. So I'm very interested to help building bridges, not just the technology, not just in the ethical side, but also in the economic side, to discover how to, in the end, how to build the common good. Talking about that, my second point, I'm very fast, is good or evil. I have to say that an ethical framework and digital development that we are talking about is not just in the Anthropocene, that we are able to do great things, even to destroy ourselves or the world, but in the Technocene, as Carlo Maria was saying. So in the Technocene, technology is affecting our lives and will affect our lives more and more so. So we cannot address technology as many people think, as if it was neutral. This is a very important thing to dialogue. Technology is not new technology, at least it's not neutral. If you think about a knife was a revolutionary technology at one point of humankind. it was incredible. No? We were able to extract steel, to create fire, but if you use a knife to eat, well, that's good. What's wrong with it? If I use a knife to kill somebody, well, it's obviously wrong. So it could be addressed as neutral, but new technology cannot, because new technology is not just the use of technology. New technology comes already with some values inside. The algorithms that Paul was talking about, they have already values inside. The people who design the new technologies, they transmit their own values, whether they are aware of that or not. They transmit their own bias as well. So their own idea of human beings, of security, of development, or peace, or work. So, and even of relationships, that Julio Martinez was saying, the anthropological relationships. So this is important because then for technology comes already with some ethical background, and we need to develop the capacity to challenge that. And that's why everybody is talking. I learned a lot about series these days as well, Netflix series. That apparently there's a popular American Netflix series called Black Mirror. So, but because I don't want to be too American, so this I discovered, thanks to some of you, that there's an excellent series, a Russian series. This is based in Moscow, that is called Better Than Us. Better Than Us. And this is so yes, last night I was watching the first episode to have something to say about this. This is a robot. So the girl, the woman, is a robot, very sophisticated robot. She is absolutely brilliant with this girl, and she's trying to help the girl and her family. But she's a serial killer. So she's a family, like you were saying, a family promoter, but in order to defend the family, she can kill anybody. So it's very, very intriguing, the series. It's very well done. But you see, even when we are deciding, is it good or evil, that robot? Well, I mean, it all depends. And it not just depends on the use. It depends also on the design and on the evaluation. And talking about evaluation, this is what I want to end up with: the capacity to be creative for the good. And for that, let me finish with this. As many of you said, if we want to be creative for the good, we need to include the question of all persons, for all the human person, for all persons, for all people. Because it's a basic question of justice. We cannot talk about the common good without justice. Unfortunately, some people that they don't like the word justice. I don't know why. In the discussion of the common good, this word is essential, although contested. But for us, and I appreciate that Julio pointed out this as well, basic justice demands the establishment of minimum levels of participation in the life of human community. So the previous slide, so the creative thing, how can we, it's a question, I don't have the answer, how can we not just bring into the table, as you were saying that it was, but how can we include their own vision of life in the design of technology? Or put differently, can we use technology to discover what are the needs, what are the actual needs of people, and therefore design them based on their needs? For example, we cannot also evaluate each technology for its utility piecemeal, because we need to understand that the technological paradigm is, as I said, is about power, as many of you, Anna Biondi was pointing out that. This is about the power. So if we are very naive and fascinated with technology, as I am, we might end up supporting the ones who are already in power and giving them more power, and the powerless will always be completely sidelined. Whereas, if we are aware of this problem of power, technology can be evaluated not merely through the technical abilities or the potential increase of human productivity, but more importantly, through how technology influences human freedom and human agency. Not just for the ones who are already free and have capacity of agency, but those who are a little bit left behind. So that will be an excellent evaluation of the new technology, and therefore will come for the regulators, etc. And finally, if we want to enhance freedom and agency, we need to take into account the context. And the context, I like what Pope Francis almost like, the word, well, is messy. And he encourages the church, we have to go out and reach out, and you will get, I mean, you have to go out and reach out a messy world. And Sheila was reminding all of us that the context that we are living today is also messy. And our job is to articulate different views, different assumptions, never forgetting who benefits and who is being hurt. So this is, for me, a good possible evaluation of the new technologies. But for that, proposals of space and more time, I like that Paula brings the idea of space. But remember, even those were the words that Monsignor Dufay and Tai were discussing, the idea of time and space. So we need more space for observatories with a systematic or comprehensive approach that could help. Now we are all open to your ideas for that, for these new spaces and have new time. And we would like to participate in processes, in a process of discernment, like Pierre Martineau was saying, that can foster the common good, maybe even revisiting the notion of the Catholic notion of the common good as we walk together. Do you know, the walk together in Greek is, well, the word synod means synhodos, is like walking together in the same path, in the same way. And how can we walk together for seeking the common good in this new digital age? And because I use the word synod, that's why I put this baby from the Amazon. This is an Amazonian baby. We are going to have the Synod of the Amazon starting next week. No? And one question that we will ask is, how can technology help indigenous people in the Amazon, or elsewhere, by the way? But you see, while we work together with you, with different people, and including those who are not here, of course, how can we design, use, and evaluate technology having this at the center and not in the peripheries? Thank you very much.